Peter Coshan, a 75-year-old retired teacher from Edinburgh, was murdered by a man he met on a dating site, a man who befriended him.
I'm David Swindle. I was a former senior detective, a murder detective in the Old Strathclyde Police. Dr. Peter Coshan was a biology teacher. He was well respected and well known.
Stole over £60,000 from his life savings and then killed him to keep him silent.
And family, charged with having fraudulently stolen thousands of pounds from the pensioner and then killing him.
But it was one small habit, something Peter did in every message he ever wrote, that exposed the killer and unraveled the entire plan. Here's how it happened.
He'd be hoping it was an error or something like that. He would be looking for the positive on it. Perhaps it was an error. But for him, he was conned.
It began in the summer of 2021, when loneliness led Peter to a decision that would cost him everything.
And that sparked an interest because it was obvious that a lot of people in the city would know who he was.
Welcome back. Your perspective might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Please note, some details in this story are fictionalized for narrative purposes. The lesson at its heart is what I hope stays with you. Peter Coshan sat at his desk in the quiet of his Stockbridge flat, typing an email to an old friend. His fingers paused over the keyboard. He typed tomorrow in full, never TMRW, never.
Several texts were sent from Peter's phone to friends and family.
There was a text message sent from Peter's phone where ultimately it stated, phone playing up, getting fixed, Tom. And he had abbreviated tomorrow.
Abbreviated, not once in 75 years. Dr. Peter Coshan had spent decades teaching biology at Edinburgh's prestigious Fettes College before retiring in 2005.
Peter Coshan was an academic, a well-respected academic that taught in a prestigious college.
We found out that he was a teacher at Fettes College in Edinburgh.
Now, he lived alone in his tidy flat at South Learmonth Gardens in the Stockbridge neighborhood. Students who had passed through Fettes College over the years remembered him fondly as Doc Kosh, the assistant housemaster with the always open door, the teacher who never turned a young person away when they needed help. He had led the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme for over 30 years, generation after generation of teenagers learning to navigate, to camp, to push themselves beyond what they thought they could do. Peter had walked those trails with them. He had shown them how to read a compass, how to work as a team, how to trust themselves. His former students still kept in touch. Letters arrived occasionally, updating him on careers, marriages, children. He read each one carefully and replied with the same attention to detail he had brought to grading biology papers. Full sentences, proper punctuation, every word spelled out completely. The flat was quiet most days. His mother was elderly now, living elsewhere, but they stayed close. He wrote her long letters describing the places they had traveled together over the years, sometimes abroad, sometimes just around Scotland. Those adventures with her were some of his favorite memories. When did solitude become loneliness? Peter had always been a private person. He valued his independence, but retirement had stretched longer than he expected. The school year no longer marked time. There were no students waiting for his guidance, no staff meetings to attend, no Duke of Edinburgh groups to lead through the Highlands. He still walked the same Edinburgh streets, the city he loved, but he walked them alone. So he had started looking online for companionship. Nothing complicated. Just someone to talk to, someone to share a meal with occasionally, someone who might understand that 75 did not mean finished. He approached it the same way he approached everything else in his life, carefully, thoughtfully, He filled out his profile completely. He wrote full sentences describing his interests: biology, travel, the outdoors. He mentioned his decades of teaching, his love of Edinburgh, his hope to meet someone genuine. He never rushed. He read each profile thoroughly before responding. He took his time composing messages. When someone seemed interesting, he would type a careful introduction, always courteous, always complete, never a shortcut. His friends would have said he was too trusting, that he saw the best in people. Sometimes when it was not there, that his instinct was always to help, to open the door, to give someone the benefit of the doubt. Peter believed kindness was always repaid with kindness. The keyboard sat before him now. The dating site open in another tab. He clicked over to it, scanned the new messages, the new profiles. He read each one with the same careful attention he had once given to student essays. He typed his responses in full sentences. Proper grammar, every word spelled out. Tomorrow, not TMRW. Talk to you soon, not TTYS. It was simply who he was, a man who valued precision, who believed words mattered, who took care with the small things. He logged into the dating site with the same careful precision he brought to everything. Full sentences, proper punctuation. Trust extended like a hand. The summer of 2021 was approaching. Someone would take that hand, and Peter would never let go fast enough. You seem like someone who actually reads messages, the profile named David wrote, and Peter found himself smiling at his computer screen. The message had arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. David seemed thoughtful. His profile mentioned an interest in the outdoors, in conversation, in meeting someone genuine. The messages that followed were kind, articulate. They asked questions and waited for answers. Over the following weeks, the conversations flowed easily. David was younger, but he did not seem to mind the age gap. He was curious about Peter's years teaching, about Edinburgh, about the places Peter had traveled. It felt, to Peter, like talking to someone who cared. The kind voice behind David belonged to Paul McNaughton, 26, a petty criminal who had created the fake dating profile specifically to target vulnerable people. He had no interest in companionship. His interest lay entirely in what a lonely 75-year-old man might have saved. Peter did not know this. He knew only that David seemed patient, understanding, someone who might become a friend. When Peter mentioned having trouble with his computer, David offered to help. "I could help with that computer issue, if you'd like," he wrote. "I'm good with tech." Peter hesitated. They had never met in person, but David had been so kind. And Peter needed help resetting a password, updating some software, small things that felt frustrating when the technology kept changing. So, he said yes. McNaughton arrived at the Stockbridge flat on a warm afternoon. Peter opened the door and saw a young man, casually dressed, smiling. They shook hands. Peter led him inside. "You're very kind to come all this way," Peter said. McNaughton waved it off. Happy to help. He sat down at Peter's desk. Peter stood nearby, watching as McNaughton clicked through menus, typed commands, explained what he was doing. The computer issue was resolved quickly. McNaughton showed Peter how to reset the password himself next time. Peter did not know that the helpful young man resetting his password was memorizing it. After that first visit, McNaughton came by occasionally, always with a reason. To check on the computer, to help with another technical problem. Each time, Peter welcomed him in. Each time, McNaughton stayed a little longer. Peter made tea. They sat and talked. Peter told stories about his years at Fettes College, about leading students through the Duke of Edinburgh award hikes. McNaughton listened. He asked questions. He seemed genuinely interested. And Peter, who had been alone for so long, was grateful. McNaughton noticed everything. The tidy flat, the quiet routine, the way Peter left paperwork on his desk, trusting that no one would look. He had the freedom to move through the space now. Peter trusted him, would step into the kitchen to make tea, leaving McNaughton alone. Trust is a door left unlocked. On a September afternoon, Peter was in the kitchen filling the kettle when McNaughton glanced at the papers on the desk. Bank statements, pension documents, the kind of financial record someone might leave out when expecting no one but a friend. McNaughton's eyes caught on a number, a bank balance, 102,000. He stared at it. A 75-year-old man living alone in Stockbridge, a retired teacher. A life savings sitting in an account McNaughton now knew how to access. The password he had memorized. The trust he had carefully built over weeks. Peter came back with the tea, smiling, talking about the weather, about a letter from a former student. McNaughton smiled back, sipped his tea, listened, but the number was burning itself into his mind. 102,000. A six-figure balance sitting in the account of a man who lived alone and trusted too easily. He did not just want some of it, he wanted it all. The phone call to the bank required an older voice, so McNaughton turned to his roommate. Paul Black, 62, had let McNaughton move in with him and proved willing to help with whatever the younger man asked. Now McNaughton needed him to impersonate an elderly pensioner on the phone. Just sound like him, McNaughton said. Old, polite, a bit slow with the technology. Black nodded. McNaughton handed him the phone and a script. Yes, this is Peter Coshan, Black said into the receiver, his voice steady. I'd like to make a withdrawal, please. The first test was for £8,000, a cautious amount. Large enough to matter, small enough not to raise flags. The bank asked security questions. Black answered with the information McNaughton had gathered during those tea-filled afternoons in Peter's flat. The withdrawal went through. McNaughton stared at the confirmation, heart racing. It had worked. Peter's trust, his memorized password, Black's voice on the phone, it had all worked. Over the following months, they drained the account in careful stages. £30,000, then £15,000, then £17,000. By June 2022, to the banks, it appeared Peter was simply managing his retirement funds, perhaps home repairs. A new car. Nothing suspicious about an elderly man accessing his own money. Peter had no idea his life savings were disappearing in increments designed to avoid detection. McNaughton kept visiting, kept playing the role of David, the kind young friend who cared. Peter made tea, told his stories, trusted, and every visit gave McNaughton more confidence that Peter would never check, never notice, never question. But in early August, Peter checked. He had been planning a small home improvement, something he had saved for. He logged into his account to see what he could afford. The page loaded. Peter stared at the screen. The number was wrong. He refreshed the page, checked again, went through recent transactions line by line. When Peter finally understood the scale of it, the number was devastating. Over £60,000 of his life savings simply gone, withdrawn in chunks over months. All while David had been sitting in his living room, drinking his tea, listening to his stories with that patient smile. Peter felt sick. He called McNaughton. No more pretense, no more kindness in his voice. I know about the money, Peter said. All of it. I'm going to the police. There was a pause on the other end. Then McNaughton's voice, calm, measured. You don't want to ruin my life over this, do you? Think about what that would mean. Peter's hand shook on the phone. He was 75 years old. He had been deceived, used. The shame of it burned worse than the anger. He blocked McNaughton online, refused to answer his calls. For 3 days, Peter sat in his flat and thought about what telling the police would mean, admitting he had let a stranger into his home, given him access to everything, been fooled by a fake profile, by kind words, by the performance of friendship. Shame is a stronger cage than fear. On the fourth day, Peter unblocked McNaughton. The messages that followed were careful. McNaughton promised to make it right, apologized, asked for a chance to fix things, said he had made terrible mistakes but wanted to return what he could, to work something out, to avoid destroying both their lives over this. Peter read the messages and felt the weight of every year he had lived alone, every moment of loneliness that had made him vulnerable to someone like McNaughton in the first place. He gave him one more chance, the last chance Peter would ever give anyone. McNaughton had been given mercy by a man too ashamed to admit he'd been fooled. He didn't use it to make things right. He used it to plan one final meeting, one that would ensure Peter Coshan could never report anything to anyone. The movie ended a little after 10, and Peter's friend offered to drive him home to Stockbridge. A friend of Peter's had taken him to the movies that Thursday evening, a normal kindness that would become the last ordinary moment of Peter's life. They talked about the film on the drive back. The friend pulled up outside Peter's flat at 10:50 in the evening. "Thanks for tonight," Peter said. "I enjoyed that." The friend watched him walk to the door, steady on his feet despite his age, and then drove away. Peter went inside, made a cup of tea, sat in the quiet of his living room the way he had done for years, alone but content with the small routines that filled his days. Within the hour, his phone buzzed. A message from David. "Would love to meet up. Tonight, I'm free if you are." Peter looked at the message. It was late, but David was offering to meet, to talk, perhaps to make good on his promise to fix things. Peter wanted to believe that people could change, that the young man who had stolen from him might genuinely want to make things right. He replied. David sent an address, Seafield Road. Peter changed his shoes, took his walking stick, left his flat for the second time that night. He had no idea that the evening he'd just enjoyed would be his last. The message from David wasn't David at all. It was McNaughton, using the same fake profile, setting the final trap for a man who still believed in second chances. The kindness Peter had shown by unblocking him, by giving him one more chance to explain, McNaughton was using it to lure him out, not to apologize, not to return the money, to silence him. Peter made his way across Edinburgh in the darkness. Seafield Road was industrial. Not the kind of place you visited late at night, unless you had a specific reason. The street was lined with warehouses, storage units, businesses that closed at 5 and left the area deserted after dark. Peter walked slowly, his stick tapping against the pavement. He was 75. The walk took longer than it might have years ago, but he was steady, determined. Somewhere ahead, McNaughton and Black were waiting. The flat they had lured him to belonged to Black, the older man who had impersonated Peter on those phone calls to the banks, draining his account while sitting in a room miles away from Stockbridge. Now he would open the door when Peter knocked, and McNaughton would be there, behind it. Peter did not know any of this. He knew only that David had asked to meet, that there was a chance to resolve things without involving the police, without the shame of admitting how badly he had been deceived. He believed he was walking toward reconciliation. Some doors close behind you forever. Shortly before midnight on August 11, 2022, Peter Coshan was seen on Seafield Road, an industrial street in Edinburgh. Quiet at that hour, empty. He walked with his cane, moving steadily toward the address McNaughton had given him. The street was dark, the businesses shuttered. No one around to notice an elderly man making his way alone through a part of the city most people avoided after sundown. Peter found the building, the flat number. He climbed the stairs, slow but sure. He knocked. On the other side of that door, Paul Black stood waiting. McNaughton beside him. Peter trusted that kindness waited on the other side, that the young man who had taken so much from him might still have enough decency left to make things right. The door opened. It was the last time anyone would see Peter Coshan alive. phone playing up, getting fixed. Tom, the text message arrived on the morning of August 12th from Peter's phone. Peter's friends, who had known him for years and understood his meticulous nature with language, read the message and felt the alarm immediately. They stared at the screen. "This isn't Peter," one of them said. "He would never write Tom." Something's wrong. Peter had never abbreviated a single word in his life. Not in text messages, not in emails, not in handwritten notes. He wrote with the precision of a man who had taught for decades, who believed that language mattered, that clarity was a courtesy you owed the people you communicated with. Gone. That single word, that shortcut Peter would never take, became the alarm that launched the investigation within hours instead of days. His friends called Police Scotland immediately, reported him missing, explained about the text message, about the abbreviation that proved someone else had his phone. Detective Superintendent Andrew Patrick of Police Scotland's major investigation team received the missing person report that morning and immediately began coordinating the search. A 75-year-old man, last seen the night before, now silent except for a text message that was clearly not written by him. The first step was his phone records. The data showed the last legitimate activity from Peter himself was on the evening of August 11th. Then nothing. Then, hours later, the fake text sent from his device trying to buy time to explain away his absence. The second step was his financial records. "We need to follow the money," Patrick told his team. "Show me every transaction from his accounts over the past year." The records told a devastating story. Systematic withdrawals beginning in late 2021. £8,000, 30,000, 15,000, 17,000, over £60,000 drained from Peter's retirement savings in carefully staged increments designed to avoid triggering fraud alerts. McNaughton's attempt to buy time had instead started a timer he couldn't stop. Every fraudulent withdrawal was documented. Every phone call to the banks had been logged, and when investigators traced the contacts in Peter's phone, one name appeared again and again in the months leading up to his disappearance: David. The dating profile. The fake identity McNaughton had created to gain Peter's trust. Before we reveal how investigators connected the digital trail to a physical address, take a moment, comment. One word for what you're feeling about this case right now. Please note, the next part includes some recreated details for narrative purposes, but the investigative process and outcome are documented. Now, back to what they found. The phone data placed McNaughton in constant contact with Peter. Messages, calls, the meticulous records of a months-long con that had moved from online conversation to in-person visits to systematic theft, and the text message on August 12th had been sent from a location near Seafield Road. Money always leaves a trail, and this one led to one address. Investigators identified Paul McNaughton and his roommate Paul Black as the primary suspects. The financial evidence was overwhelming. The phone records were damning, and the fake text message, with its single abbreviated word, proved that whoever had Peter's phone on the morning of August 12th was not Peter. The search for Peter expanded. Officers canvassed the area around Seafield Road, interviewed neighbors, examined CCTV footage, but Peter himself was nowhere to be found. On August 31st, 2022, 3 weeks after Peter was last seen alive walking toward a door on Seafield Road with his cane in hand, Police Scotland formally declared they were investigating his disappearance as murder. The financial records told a story of systematic theft. The phone data placed McNaughton and Black in constant contact with Peter, and the text message, with its single damning abbreviation, proved someone else had his phone. The question was no longer if Peter was dead. It was, where? The cameras don't lie. Every vehicle crossing the Scottish border gets logged, time-stamped, photographed by automatic number plate recognition systems. Detective Superintendent Andrew Patrick's team pulled the data for the days following Peter's disappearance. They were looking for a dark Vauxhall Vectra registered to Paul McNaughton. They found it. The Vectra had crossed the Scotland-England border twice in mid-August, once on the 15th, during the hours of darkness. Then again on the 16th. The Vectra crossed the border twice, Patrick said, reviewing the ANPR data with his team. Once down, once back, then down again. What was he doing between trips? The pattern was telling. A journey south, a return to Edinburgh. Then another trip south the following night. Something had gone wrong the first time. Investigators began pulling CCTV footage from hardware stores along the route between Edinburgh and the England border. On August 15th, between the two southbound trips, security cameras captured McNaughton entering a shop. "We've got him on CCTV at a hardware store," an investigator reported, purchasing shovels. The shovels on the footage told investigators exactly what McNaughton and Black had intended to do: bury Peter where no one would find him. The first trip south had been to dispose of the body, but something had stopped them. Perhaps they had arrived and realized they needed tools. Perhaps the location they chose had been harder to access than expected. So they drove back, bought shovels, and tried again. The shovels they bought would never touch the ground. The search focused on the remote countryside near the Scotland-England border, areas accessible from the A696, the route the Vectra had taken, places isolated enough that two men could stop a car in the darkness and believe no one would see. On September 4th, 2022, a victim recovery detection dog searching the area near Kirkwhelpington in Northumberland alerted its handler. Behind a stone wall, in the remote border country where farmland met wilderness, they found Peter Coshan. He had been there for 3 weeks. The ground around the wall was hard, unyielding, the kind of earth that would have required hours of digging with proper equipment. McNaughton and Black had brought shovels designed for gardening, not excavation. They had tried and failed, so they left him there, abandoned behind a stone wall where the ground would not give. Some endings have no dignity, only abandonment. The autopsy would later confirm what investigators already suspected. Peter had died violently, but the body, exposed to the elements for weeks, the ground too hard for burial, yielded limited forensic evidence about the exact sequence of events that night on Seafield Road. The ANPR data placed McNaughton's car at the Scotland-England border twice in the days after Peter disappeared. The CCTV showed him purchasing tools meant for burial. The victim recovery dog had found Peter exactly where that evidence suggested he would be. But the investigation still had unanswered questions. What had happened in that room when Peter knocked on the door? Had Black let him in? Had McNaughton been waiting? Had there been a confrontation? Or had Peter been attacked the moment he stepped inside? The physical evidence told investigators where. The financial records told them why. The phone data told them who. But only 2 people had been in that room on Seafield Road the night Peter Coshan died. One of them would never speak. The other would have to. McNaughton and Black were arrested in early September, days after Peter's body was found. The evidence against them was overwhelming. The financial fraud, the fake text message, the ANPR data, the shovels, the body abandoned exactly where the car had been tracked going. But the stone wall and the hard ground had kept one secret. The investigation still didn't know exactly what had happened in that room on Seafield Road the moment Peter Coshan died. Only one person who was there would ever tell that story. Paul Black raised his right hand in the Edinburgh Crown Court witness box and swore to tell the truth about the night of August 11th, 2022. He was the one person who had been there, the one who could tell the story of what happened when Peter Coshan knocked on that door. McNaughton and Black had been arrested in early September 2022, days after Peter's body was found. McNaughton had pleaded guilty to murder at a preliminary hearing on August 2nd, 2023. His fate was sealed. But Black's trial had not begun until May 2024, nearly 2 years after Peter's death. He sat in the witness box now, facing a potential life sentence for murder. The prosecution argued he had been complicit, that he had lured Peter to the flat, that he had known what McNaughton intended to do. Black's defense rested on a single claim. He had not known, had not witnessed the killing, had only learned what happened after it was too late. Peter's family sat in the courtroom gallery at Edinburgh Crown Court, present to hear the truth about how their loved one had died, faces set with the grim determination of those who had waited nearly 2 years for answers. The prosecutor stood, methodically questioned Black about the events of August 11th, 2022, building the case piece by careful piece. What happened when Peter Coshan arrived at your flat that night? Black looked down, then up. His voice was quiet. I opened the door. Peter's family sat in the gallery, waiting to hear what they already knew in their hearts. I let him in, Black continued. I took him to the room where Paul was waiting. The courtroom was silent. Black admitted under oath that he had opened the door that night, that he had walked Peter Coshan through the flat, delivered him to the room where McNaughton was waiting, knowingly leading a 75-year-old man who had come seeking reconciliation to the person who intended to silence him forever. And then what happened? I left him alone, Black said. Paul told me to leave. So I did. Did you hear anything from that room? No, nothing. No struggle. No shout. No sound that would have told Black to intervene, to call for help, to stop what was happening behind that closed door. The prosecutor pressed forward. And what did McNaughton tell you after he came out of that room? Black hesitated. The answer everyone had been waiting for. He said he'd killed him. Black was saving himself by finally telling the truth about someone who could no longer speak. The courtroom heard the words that would finally confirm what everyone had known, but no one could prove. McNaughton came out of that room and told Black he had killed Peter Coshan, and Peter's name hung in the air of the courtroom like an accusation. What did you do then? We took him. In the car. Paul drove. The dark Vauxhall Vectra. The border crossings. The shovels. The stone wall in Northumberland, where they abandoned him when the ground would not give. All of it confirmed now by the man who had been there. But the exact moment of Peter's death remained locked in that room on Seafield Road. Black had not been inside when it happened, had not seen what McNaughton did, had only heard the confession afterward. The room on Seafield Road. That was where it had happened, where Peter Coshan had walked in trusting a meeting with David and never walked out, where McNaughton had killed him while Black waited outside. The room that would never give up all its secrets, because only one man who was there would ever tell, and he hadn't been inside when it mattered. The jury had deliberated for hours before filing back into the Edinburgh courtroom, their faces revealing nothing. Black's testimony had given them the framework. He had opened the door. He had led Peter to the room where McNaughton waited. He had heard the confession. He had helped dispose of the body. But had he known, when he opened that door on August 11th, 2022, that Peter would die? The jury foreman stood to deliver the verdict the 12 had agreed upon after hours of deliberation. The courtroom fell silent. On the charge of murder, how do you find the defendant? Not guilty. Peter's family sat motionless in the gallery. On the charge of attempting to pervert the course of justice? Guilty. The jury believed Black's testimony that he hadn't known McNaughton would kill Peter, that he had opened the door in ignorance, not malice, and so they spared him the murder conviction, though not the consequences of what he did after. No verdict brings anyone back. The judge presiding over the case had heard all the evidence, all the testimony about greed and betrayal, and now delivered the sentences that would close the legal chapter of Peter Coshan's murder. Paul McNaughton, the judge said, "You are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of Dr. Peter Coshan." McNaughton showed no reaction. He had pleaded guilty over a year earlier. The sentence was expected: life. The rest of his days behind bars for taking all of Peter's. The judge turned to Black. "Paul Black, you are sentenced to 5.5 years imprisonment for attempting to pervert the course of justice. 5.5 years for helping to hide a body, for the fake text message, for the border crossings, the shovels, the stone wall where they abandoned him, not for murder, but for everything that came after." Peter's family sat in the gallery as the words were spoken, their long wait for justice finally over. Nearly 2 years since Peter had walked out of his Stockbridge flat, trusting that kindness waited at the address McNaughton had given him. 2 years of waiting, of searching, of piecing together how a retired teacher who wrote incomplete sentences and never abbreviated a word had ended up behind a stone wall in Northumberland. The courtroom had given them answers. McNaughton had killed him. Black had helped cover it up. The jury had weighed the evidence. The judge had pronounced sentences. But what is justice to a family that will never hear their loved one's voice again? Life imprisonment. 5.5 years. Numbers that could never balance the equation of what had been taken. The men were led away. The courtroom emptied. The legal process had concluded. But across Edinburgh, in the staff rooms of Fettes College and the homes of former students, one question still hung unanswered. Why him? Why a 75-year-old retired teacher who had spent his life helping young people? The courtroom had answered how. A fake dating profile, months of manipulation, theft, a meeting on Seafield Road, a room where McNaughton killed him, the border crossings, the stone wall. It had answered who? Paul McNaughton, the man who created David. Paul Black, the roommate who opened the door. But it would never answer why Peter Coshan had been chosen for this particular cruelty. Why a man who believed in second chances had been targeted by someone who saw kindness as weakness. Why a teacher who spent his life opening doors for students had his life ended behind one. Those who knew Peter Coshan refused to let his death define his life. The courtroom had answered the legal questions. McNaughton would spend his life in prison. Black would serve 5.5 years. The how and who had been proven, sentenced. But the question of why Peter, would never have a satisfying answer. There was no reason that made sense. No justification for why a retired teacher became the target of such cruelty. So those who knew him chose to focus on something else. Not how he died, but how he lived. Former students of Fettes College, people who had known Peter Coshan as Doc Kosh during their school years, spoke about him in the weeks and months after the trial, determined to preserve the memory of the teacher who had shaped their lives. "He was our go-to person," one former student said. "It was an open door for Doc Kosh to help us." The biology teacher with the always open door, the man who led the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme for over 30 years, who took students under his wing when they were far from home for the first time, who made himself available, patient, present in ways that changed young lives. This year, he should have been leading another group of students through the Duke of Edinburgh Award, another former student reflected, like he did for more than 30 years. A life is more than its ending. Peter had been a teacher, a mentor, someone who showed up year after year, hike after hike, student after student, building a legacy one conversation at a time. He had been meticulous, careful, thoughtful in the small ways that revealed character, the way he wrote, the way he listened, the way he never rushed through anything that mattered, including language. Peter never abbreviated, not in emails, not in text messages, not in handwritten notes. He wrote out every word in full, even when rushing, because precision mattered to him. It was a small habit, the kind of detail most people would never notice. but it became the thing that exposed Paul McNaughton. The fake text message sent from Peter's phone on the morning of August 12th had contained one abbreviation that screamed wrong to everyone who knew him. Phone playing up? Getting fixed, Tom? Tom, short for tomorrow, but not Peter. How do you honor someone who asked for nothing but gave everything? The way he died shouldn't be the way we remember him, one former student said. We remember Doc Kosh, the open door, the Duke of Edinburgh award hikes, the biology lessons, the patience, the kindness that made him vulnerable to someone like McNaughton in the first place. They chose to remember the life, not just the loss. And in that choice, there was a final irony that would have meant something to a man who valued precision in language. McNaughton had tried to buy time by sending a text from Peter's phone, tried to sound like him with 3 words and an abbreviation. He got the tone wrong. He got the man wrong, because the one person who never abbreviated anything, who wrote out every word in full even when rushing, who valued precision and care in language as he did in life, that was Peter. And that single habit, that small act of being exactly who he was, became the thread that unraveled everything McNaughton had planned. Peter Coshan had spent his life opening doors for students, teaching them, guiding them, showing them kindness when they needed it most. In the end, it was his own careful nature, the same meticulous attention to detail he brought to every hike, every lesson, every word he wrote, that opened the door to justice. Peter Coshan spent his life teaching students to pay attention to details. In the end, those same details brought his killer to justice. Doc Kosh, the teacher with the open door, deserves to be remembered for 30 years guiding students through the Duke of Edinburgh Award. Not for 3 weeks, his body lay hidden. His former students speak of kindness, patience, and a man who showed up when needed. That is who Peter Coshan was. This case carries a difficult truth. Loneliness makes us vulnerable, and predators know it. Peter's search for connection on a dating site led him to someone who saw only opportunity in his trust. The warning is not to stop trusting. It's to recognize online relationships require time and verification before moving into your home and life. McNaughton spent months building credibility before he struck. Red flags were there. The IT help that gave access, the financial irregularities. But by then, Peter's kindness had opened the door. If this story stayed with you, please leave a comment. Subscribe for more true crime cases told with respect. If someone you know navigates online dating later in life, share this, not to frighten, but to remind that verification and time are the price of safety. Thank you for listening to Peter's story. This case is based on real events. The investigation, trial, and sentences are documented. Some scenes are dramatized to convey emotional reality, but the core truth remains. Paul McNaughton is serving life imprisonment, and Paul Black served time for the cover-up. My deepest respect to Peter Coshan's family and everyone who remembers him as the teacher he was, not the victim he became.